I think there's been an incredible milestone lately that just happened for Cardano. And the reason why I say that is because MSB Intel recently made a post saying how Cardano reaches record Nakamoto coefficient of 16, which actually showcased the highest decentralization level for Cardano so far that it's ever achieved, basically. And I'll explain what I think about this in today's video and why I think it could actually impact Cardano, even though nothing I say is financial advice. I am not telling anyone to do anything, and this is just my perspective. So if we take a look at it, what is the Nakamoto coefficient? If I just kind of want to put it quite simply, it's basically a scoring metric of sorts, or what I say a quantitative indicator for decentralization. And to just put it quite simply, right, the higher the number, the more decentralized, and the lower the number, the more centralized it is. So when people like to say, well, Cardano, the number is 16, like, what is that? Like, is that even a good score? Let's just compare it to some of its competitors, right? If we take a look at it, Sui, the score is 19 when it comes to this. Solana is 18, Cardano 16. And now people like to say, well, what the? Like, who cares about this? Cardano is scored lower than them, right? So that means it's not as decentralized as them, hypothetically. Well, according to the Nakamoto coefficient, yes, in theory, they are a little bit more decentralized, it seems like, just based off that metric, I suppose. But it doesn't change the fact that this is the highest score, basically, for Cardano so far in terms of the Nakamoto coefficient. So it's indicating progress when it comes to that. It doesn't necessarily mean that, it's the most decentralized thing of all time. No. But at the same time, at least the score is improving. So why would I say it's bad? And let's think about this, right? When enterprises want to adopt, let's say, blockchain technology when it comes to this space, in some cases, they want to see something become hypothetically decentralized. And in which case, if we take a look at Cardano, the more and more it showcases its decentralized aspects, like for instance, being ranked like that, right? In the Nakamoto coefficient, that really does matter. It changes kind of the optics when it comes to Cardano. However, also on top of that, need I remind people, Grayscale recently made a post and it actually had something to do with Cardano. I'm not joking. For instance, in terms of this post, they said that every quarter they update the components of their multi-asset funds, in which case we take a look at, in terms of Grayscale's smart contract fund, ADA, which is Cardano's native token, it does make a percentage of that. Case in point, it actually makes up around 4.88% of that. So almost 5% basically, which is not bad. Because if we take a look at it, sure, when it comes to that specific Grayscale smart contract fund, the largest percentage in that as of right now is BNB, which is around 30%, Ethereum is around 29%, Solana around 29%, and then ADA is almost around 5%. Now people like to say, well, that's really bad. But we take a look at it, ADA has almost 5%, HBAR only has around 2%, AVAX, which is Avalanche's native token, that's around almost 2%, and then Sui is also almost 2%. So it's not bad. And again, recently seeing Cardano being ranked that highly in the Nakamoto coefficient and then seeing Grayscale make a post about Cardano recently, I think these are pretty impressive things. So when people like to say, well, nothing's going on when it comes to Cardano, well, there are things going on. Maybe it's not the most exciting thing of all time because the price isn't doing the best. However, when it comes to this space, if the market isn't doing good, the project can be doing so many amazing things, but it just really wouldn't affect it. It's like, for instance, right? If let's say I was, snorkeling, would me having hiking equipment matter? No, it wouldn't. But then after I go on land and I try to hike and all this, then it's going to start mattering a lot, right? If I want to hike. So it's kind of like that. As of right now, this space isn't doing the best. So if the space overall isn't doing the best, it's pretty difficult to be excited for a project like Cardano or something like that. Just pretty difficult. But it doesn't mean that this type of stuff won't matter, because we've seen time and time again, historically speaking, all the stuff that Cardano has been doing, eventually, in some cases, if the market hypothetically were to recover, sometimes it does matter a lot. So again, it's kind of like the analogy I used before, right? If I'm snorkeling, of course, I'm not going to be using hiking equipment, but then when I want to hike, then it's going to start mattering. As of right now, Cardano hasn't had the moment to go on a hike yet, if that kind of makes sense, just because the market sentiment hasn't changed. However, if it were to change, these are the things that people usually look at. And again, seeing Grayscale talk about Cardano, seeing the Nakamoto coefficient and how Cardano is ranked quite decently when it comes to that in terms of the scoring. This is the type of stuff that's going to build the optics when it comes to Cardano. And the optics do matter a lot when it comes to this space, just because there's so many competitors, right? So Cardano, they need to stand out one way or another, and this type of stuff does help in my opinion. And now, at the time I'm making this video, ADA actually has reached 20 cents yet again. It's been quite a while since I've seen 20 cents, but now it's reached it again, which really isn't too much in the grand scheme of things, but I think this kind of showcases that, you know what? For ADA to actually have around a 20% recovery in the past 30 days, it kind of showcases that even though the market isn't doing the best, some people have been slightly caring about this to a certain extent, or not, that wouldn't have happened, right? But again, I would like to just also remind people that ADA last year was hovering at around $1 quite easily and quite casually. So $1 really isn't even anything that difficult, and 20 cents in the grand scheme of things isn't even anything too impressive. But again, seeing that 20% recovery in the past 30 days, I'm not going to complain about that, but it just showcases that the journey, hypothetically, even just back to $1, which isn't even that difficult, it still seems quite far. So this is not even the main course. This is just the appetizer. Not even really the appetizer. It's like the water that we get, when we enter a restaurant. The complimentary water. That's just kind of it. This is kind of like somewhat peanuts compared to what ADA was not that long ago. So the journey from right now to $1, it's like around 5 times. Which for a lot of other projects out there, that would already feel like a altcoin season, by the way. So when it comes to ADA, if it goes back to $1, I'm going to Sizzler, the restaurant. It already would kind of feel like a miniature altcoin season to me. I know it wouldn't be, just because $1 isn't anything that impressive when it comes to ADA, but just because we're so low, right, compared to that. That's just the way to take a look at it. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. However, I'm still holding. That's pretty much it. I can't really do much beyond that, though. But again, I think sometimes there's this misconception that, good, fundamentals and also, improvements when it comes to a project means good demand. It doesn't always mean that way. If the market isn't doing the best, demand is naturally kind of low. So inherently, Cardano can announce this, can announce that. It won't really do much to the hypothetical price, if any. But again, that type of stuff could matter eventually, and even to a certain extent, as of right now, it is slightly, I guess, somewhat mattering, just because the recovery has been around 20% in the past 30 days. However, even besides all that, Cardano, they just keep on doing their thing, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do next. They already have a partnership with the Brazilian Olympic Committee, so we'll wait and see what they're going to do next. But yeah, I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward when it comes to Cardano, and hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very fantastic and wonderful day.